humanity. I want to thank you for committing and dedicating your time and your knowledge, sharing your knowledge and your comprehension. Because I think we're going to look back hopefully one day and and really be us or our children. We're going to be proud of what we've been doing in this transformational, really essential phase. So yeah. Why don't we start off? I want to start off, Jeff, with this, and Knut with this energy FUD by Elon Musk. I know. I just want to spend some time on it because can I just first establish a fact? I mean, would you agree that? I do admire. I do admire Elon Musk for his, creativity, creative mind, innovative entrepreneurship. He's really, contributed a lot to the development of technology. But the thing is, I mean, when someone is in a position and dependent on governmental subsidies, including military contracts, and is at the top of the fiat cantileniers, if I may call that. I mean, doesn't it somehow force you, to ignore the facts and not be open to rational, logical argumentation, like both of you do on Twitter and elsewhere? You ask very logical, rational questions. Which would you choose? Monetary inflation, just to paraphrase it, or the other route. Like a sound, hard as scarce as money, and with a free market. And so yeah, let's just kick it off.
I think you said or intimated that well. You follow the incentives, follow the behavior. And I was thinking about it last night because I posted that comment on how is it possible to grow forever on a finite planet and think that's energy conservation or good for the environment. It's illogical. And that was shared kind of over 4,000 times, and it's had 750,000 people look at it or interact with it on Twitter. But that's not the compelling part. The compelling part is about 1,000 people, or maybe more, actually believe that that's a good thing for the planet. And it's really hard to grasp that, because it's illogical. You cannot grow forever on a finite planet. And if you're going to debase your currency to pretend you can, it kind of wreaks havoc everywhere. So now getting to Elon Musk. When your entire business is, and by the way, our first statement, he's still in Bitcoin. He's still there, and I think he's a net positive for the whole system. But if you imagine how many people would come after him on the whole ESG thing, and how the government is probably coming after him on the whole ESG thing, that's probably what made that tip. And he did point to, as it transitions more to renewables and everything else in his statement, he's looking at it. But again, you watch where the incentives come from. He's trying to get money from the incentive structure, the ESG structure, and all of the money that's being printed to support ESG. And I bet you in his organization, a whole bunch of people are, you have to walk your Bitcoin back until people understand that it's that it's a net positive for society rather than a negative. That's now that what I just said has a lot of consequences for Bitcoin too, because right now, with so much confusion, if so many people misunderstand it, then it's more susceptible from a hack from another digital currency that can be controlled, right? Or government digital currency that can be controlled. And so where the big, I try to think about, and you guys know this, but I am not in this for money, fame. No, I don't need any of that. I'm in this because I truly believe that Bitcoin might be the only path to actually humanity surviving as a species. It might be that it's that strong, because every other digital currency, it wouldn't be allowed to break out this fast, right? So Bitcoin's already so large and distributed and everything else, and it has a network effect on it. You would have to really, to stop that, or you could stop others, right? You could, through regulation, control of on ramps, you could stop others. But Bitcoin's hard to stop. So if I were thinking the opposite course, what would I do to try to stop it? I might create my own ransomware attack on a pipeline, right? If I was thinking counterintelligence, I might do that to say we have to stop it. I might create a whole bunch of FUD around energy reliance to say we have to stop it, thinking, okay, if we can slow it down and we can create something else that solves some of these, maybe we can catch up.
Knut, yeah, let me hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I'm unmuted now. I think Elon is slowly but surely turning into John McAfee, because like some of what he says makes a lot of sense, but then he's trolling in between with all this Dogecoin stuff, and people don't know what to make of this last tweet. I think it's probably, just as Jeff said, a political move rather than anything else, because even with the fiat mindset, there's so many errors in the argumentation. Like, for instance, it doesn't change, the energy usage of Bitcoin does not change because of more or less transactions. That has nothing to do with the energy use. So not selling or not selling Teslas for Bitcoin wouldn't change the energy use at all. I think it's quite a cheap political move for him, since he wouldn't be selling very many Teslas for Bitcoin anyway. Because if you have enough Bitcoin to buy a Tesla, that probably means you're a hodler, and you've already figured out the how excellent Bitcoin is at everything. So you'd rather keep the Bitcoin than buy a Tesla with them. So I don't think he was selling any Teslas for Bitcoin, or at least not very many of them. So that's the first thing. But then again, I believe that there's nothing on Earth uses energy as efficiently and as honestly as Bitcoin mining does, because like it's a business with a very small profit margin. So it's like selling $1 for it's like buying $1 for 99 cents, buying a Bitcoin for almost a whole Bitcoin, because they have to spend that much money on the energy in order to acquire the Bitcoin and receive the winning block every 10 minutes. So and it's already using excess energy, and not like energy that would have been wasted and thrown away. In that sense, I've written a lot about this, how it functions as a mathematical battery. You can convert electrical energy into monetary energy, which is like the first time that physics is connected to praxeology, if you will. Like the objective world is connected to the subjective or intersubjective world of human action. And it's a really fascinating thing, because it's we've never seen a thing like this before. And whether Elon understands it or not is up for debate. But I think in the long run, he's just noise and nothing else, little else. It's a parenthesis in the history of Bitcoin to come.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's noise, distraction, and And to be honest with you, I mean, I don't think Elon Musk is stupid. He's highly intelligent, highly creative in his, in his thinking. So I don't think
Yeah.
it's not the lack of, argument of facts of,
No.
understanding the facts of a reality. And, Alex Epstein or Epstein, whatever, how do you pronounce, he challenged him actually to a discussion. He's one of the really renowned experts on, energy and efficiency. And he said something like, something, sort of as a reply to Elon Musk's postulations. He said, what does 1,330 terawatt hours in batteries cost? At current megapack prices quoted by Elon Musk himself, that's $300 per kilowatt hour. That's about $400 trillion. To put this into perspective, global GDP is approximately $87 trillion.
Yeah, and the thing is, he's a brilliant engineer, obviously, but he's also obviously an even more brilliant marketeer. Because he markets his products even better than they function. Like the whole thing wouldn't work without government subsidies to begin with. Like, and if you count everything, including how hard it is for people to start producing nuclear energy, for instance, it's forbidden in very many places. And furthermore, a kilowatt hour in one place is not the same as a kilowatt hour at another place. Like you need access to them. Like they need to be close to the energy source in order to be used. Batteries are not normal batteries, or the batteries that Elon produces are not as good at storing energy as people think. There's a lot of waste in electricity when transporting it and when storing it, and Bitcoin functions as a hedge for that. They're like a mathematical battery, as I said. You can use the excess energy in order to create a specific part of a finite number, 21 million. And you get a piece of the digital pie, and that's forever. So it incentivizes green solutions more than anything else. And this is all without mentioning how much better a sound money standard would be. And how sound money works, and how sorry, Jeff, but how a world where consumerism is disincentivized is the only thing that can save us, as Jeff said before, because I truly believe that as well. But from a fiat standpoint, this is my explanation of how it's environmentally friendly.
And so just to build on what Knut said, we are in a transformation to the digital age, and the digital age is made up of information. Just about everything is energy and information, right? We're in information. In that transition to make it easier for people to understand, we used to, I think about the cassette tapes or CDs that I used to buy to listen to music. Tons of a CD library. Those were things which were really information. And they had an entire distribution channel of people who could pick the musicians because of the high cost of distribution. They had to pick the winners. And so we only saw very few of the musicians. And then we went to a record store and we bought CDs or something like that. And we drove to all of the energy, everything else to do that. And now we have unlimited music for $10 a month. Where is the GDP gain in the unlimited music? Where's the GDP gain for all of the artists who also created that music for us that would have never been found? Everything else. There's a tiny bit for their wealth that was created out of it. But net of those two systems, the technology created a GDP decrease. That's as things moved to information, and productivity moving into information is lower cost. It should bring prices down. So in that abundance, we right now, if you use that idea just in CDs, oh great CDs, and then people don't notice it on all of the advantage they have on their phone or the cameras or anything else, and we miss it because we're living through it. And this system is eradicating those gains and concentrating the wealth and trying to make prices go up against that. And the primary thing is productivity in a digital world should be negative GDP. It should drive and because information is moving from things to from things to information, and it's being digitized, and it's just starting. It's moving across society at blinding speed. That system requires a currency that allows for deflation. Any other thing that allows inflation, or centralization, which then allows inflation, essentially concentrates power, and puts eventually all power in the state, or very small amount of people who determine who gets what, and it ruins the free market. And now pull on that thread. It's a requirement of the new system, a currency that allows for deflation. Every other system concentrates power. Those are the two ends of the spectrum, and keeps making it worse and worse. Now, when you have costs that want to go down, take solar for instance. You have the lowest cost energy now, and if you add batteries, it's not the lowest cost energy, but solar itself, lowest cost energy, additive to the grid, bringing energy costs down, and all costs are supposed to be coming down. So you have to exponentially increase the amount of printing on one side to keep costs going up. Should oil prices be what they are right now? It's ludicrous. Should copper prices be what they are? Should all of these prices, should gas prices be what they are? No, that is a function of money printing that's trying to make prices go up, because if you allow deflation to happen, this existing system that we live in, that where it's just credit, collapses. So it's a system problem, and people are so stuck in the system they can't see it's a system problem.
To add to that, I would go one step further and say that like even before the information era, everything was information with physical things as well. People are not selling goods, but services. Every good is a service. Like I just bought a new outdoor sofa for my garden, and it's not really that I want the thing, but I want to be able to relax in my backyard, and I want somewhere to sit. That's a service and not a good. So I would say that this problem existed before the internet as well. It just this exponential growth of like how cheap everything became just propelled it. It's much easier to see the problem now that we're in the like flipping stage of the exponential curve, where the prices of everything are approaching zero in reality, and still they're artificially going up. I mean, the very word money printer shouldn't exist. No one should ever have been allowed to print money. Money should always have been a thing that was costly to produce. The costlier the money is to produce, the cheaper the prices of everything else, and vice versa. The cheaper the money is to produce, the costlier everything else.
Yeah, abundance in money, scarcity in everything else, or scarcity in money, abundance in everything else.
Exactly.
That's the choice.
That's the choice.
And actually, Knut is exactly right. Information has always been, it's the organization of atoms, and it's somebody's creative idea to organize those atoms in your iPhone differently than somebody else. It's just information.
Exactly.
But today, what we can do with organizing, what technology is allowing us to do is moving so fast, and it won't be our ideas alone. It'll be artificial intelligence ideas giving far more. It's moving so fast. And so that type of system, especially where we are. So to Knut's point, inflation was always a theft, but we didn't notice it because it happened so slowly. And now it's happening at blinding speed. And when people are forced to ask, if you can make up money from nothing, and it's causing all of these prices to go up, and some people are winning from that, and some people are massively having the pockets picked. Is that a fair system? And I can't, for the life of me, I can't understand why some people still think it's a fair system. In fact, a lot of the people that are most hurt by it want more of it.
Yeah.
I'm going to state this: I'm not hurt by it. You guys know because you read my book. In fact, I'm helped by it. I don't think a system deserves to be unfairly to me or anybody else.
Oh, exactly right. It's so it's like people, money is so it's in the base layer of everyone's operating system. It's like a nationality or a religion or something. People think they can't they think they can't break out of those mental chains. I mean, you're born and you live and you die, and what you do in between is up to you, really, if you want to. But we have all these pre-programmed like operating systems, and we have a hard time. Most people have a very hard time thinking out of the outside of the box when it comes to money, since it's so fundamental to everything. But we're gonna need to, sooner or later. Everyone's going to need to rethink money, and we're just ahead of the curve, guys.
Yeah. But it does say how early we are on this.
Yeah.
It's and I wrote about this quite a bit, and Kevin, because I think about that a lot. Where are my objective mistakes in my thinking? What are the things that why do I believe something, and is it because I want to believe that, or is it because it's true? And so and where are others as well? And we go through life and we believe a lot of stuff, and it's us holding ourselves back, in most cases. But that's true, and it's true for me, it's true for you, it's true for everybody. But we think it's not true for us. We think it's true for everyone else. And so in this case, we are very early in this, because and even when we think about when money, Bitcoin price go up and everything else, and when you think about it, it's money is an abstract concept, right? You don't want more money. You want the things that money will buy. So it's applied to everything else. And what we're saying, I think, is in Bitcoin, all other prices will come down forever, and we'll be able to buy more forever. But I don't want to die with billions of dollars and say I had the most money. Like, what a ludicrous life, right? Like, it's not something that I really care about at all. I care about the time I get to use those experiences with. It's to create more experiences, create more safety, create more everything else. And I think most people, very few people, there are some, chasing money for money's sake, but it's actually not for money's sake. It's so that they can say they have more than somebody else.
Yeah.
It's used for your experiences. It's used to create more, and it's used to create abundance in your life, and an abundance of experiences, or that's what it should be used for. It's an abstract concept. But to Knut's point there, when people don't know that, and they've been lied to all their lives about, you have to live in a system that looks like this, what they're doing is they're chasing safety, protection of their family in an arbitrary unit that's being destroyed in real time against them. And so you can understand all of the natural fear, what ends up happening to people as a result of essentially breaking those rules.
Jeff, there's something that's been occupying my mind, and I think it's important. I have the feeling it's been shunned or ignored, or not really, maybe because it's the unknown, and I don't want to go into the unknown. But you've expressed, you articulated in some of your interviews, podcasts, your concern, like. What's the transition phase going to look like? Are we going to have social disruptions, more social division, chaos, maybe even civil war? Like, how do you see this? Because one thing is sure, Bitcoin cannot be stopped, and network cannot be. So it's going to go up, in whatever purchasing power, and it will eventually, reach a critical mass. We're going to reach, mass adoption, hyper Bitcoinization. But are you sometimes, more than ever concerned, like how, if you've maybe seen the sci-fi movie In Time, with Justin Timberlake, where they have, are you sometimes concerned that it's going to go like a two-tier or multiple parallel society levels we're going to evolve into in the transitional phase?
It's a big question. It's a great question, and let's explore it a little bit. But by the way, and this is to all Bitcoiners, it actually does. I think you're right. I think it doesn't matter to them specifically, because if they're longtime holders, this is going to continue and stop looking at the daily price. But the more, in fact, the more that we try to make others look bad, who clearly don't see it, the more we feed the narrative of the existing system that it's a bunch of crazies. They're not crazy. Bitcoin has the smartest minds in it, and the entrepreneurs and everything else. It's not crazies. But if you're arrogant, everything else, everybody wants to knock down the person who's arrogant, right? And so we need, at least for me, I think about, okay, people just don't know. They really don't know. They're so blind to this, and they don't know, and that gives this system an edge. That gives the existing system an edge. And what I really care about, what I care most about, is getting as many people as fast as they can on Bitcoin, not the hedge funds, not anything else, individual people. So you have a technology that promises empowerment of the individual on one side. And the only way to stop that, it's very hard to stop, but the state is going to do everything, and not just one state, but other states. They're going to try everything they can to stop that, because it removes the state power, and the operating system is different. I am convinced, and I mean, the operating system is so different that it changes how we think about money, our time, everything. It's connected to so many other things. So, but the state control this existing system for fear of loss will try everything to stop it. So I understand that violent swing. So when I see things like what Elon did or does with Doge or anything else, what my biggest fear is, more people aren't being exposed and coming on because they're scared, and then it creates more of this two types of systems. Now let's take this kind of the state system. We've already talked about it. There is actually no way for it to function without consolidating more and more power through inflation. So money printing more and more power, and society will vote for the short term rather than the long term, right? So the people that are starving will say, yes, I'll take that money, even though it's coming from them in the first place. And so I've thought about this long and hard. Why don't enough people in Russia stand up and demand a change? And because it's so easy to try to seek safety in a system that is unfair, and they'll think personal safety, I won't risk myself to be able to, the power is too great. Now extend that same path forward, or Myanmar, or anywhere else that you see the 4 billion or so people that live in these type of countries. And why don't they all rise up? Because if they all rose up in an instant, it would be that dictator power would be overturned, but they don't, because of that short-term family safety versus the right thing. Now think about that model, which we are moving to in our existing world really fast, with AI and robotics. Good luck. So you want dystopian, have very small control of this with that type of superpower. That's pretty dystopian. That is, by the way, that is the real race of our time.
Yeah.
Versus
Thanks for the transition, by the way, but that's because it's going to be the next question, because you brought that up actually last time in one of the interviews about the Boston Dynamics robot. And that's a first topic I think we talked about in our first interview. And you brought it up again. And I'm like, what if they're just showing, what they have as a, displaying it as a toy, something cute.
Just on that, Kevin, and I want to let Knut talk, but on that, I just use it as a reference point. Because Boston Dynamics 10 years ago, if you just YouTube it, look what it looked like, look at it now, and extrapolate what it'll look like in 10 years. But when I say that reference point, now people will think the dog or the robot doing flips or the dancing, and they'll be burned in their mind, and they won't extrapolate how fast it's moving, nor will they extrapolate the miniaturization of those robots. And it might not look nothing like that dog or that humanoid robot, but the power, because of the miniaturization or the swarm that you could create on this with AI, is like nothing we have ever seen. Skynet.
It's T-1000s are coming. A swarm of them.
Yeah.
Anyway, to address your last question first, before we get into robotics and AI. You talk about the transition, Keivan, and I think that's I think of it more as the crash, because it's only a transition because we have Bitcoin. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a transition; it would just be a disaster. And a disaster is coming regardless of whether we have Bitcoin or not. So I think Bitcoin is the only tool we have for dampening the collateral damage of the coming disaster. And on the point of like the Elon and the Dogecoin thing and all the misinformation that is so abundant here in the Western world, that could actually help the people that need Bitcoin the most, because like people in Nigeria or Argentina or Venezuela or Myanmar or whatever, they have a chance to hop onto this train before, like if you take, or Lebanon or hyperinflating countries, they have it's much easier for them to understand the benefits of sound money. So they have a chance in the global race to hop onto Bitcoin before us that are already safe do. So that's how I view that.
But and then you understand when you think about what I read a lot on consciousness, brain interfaces, everything else, and one of the things I've come to think, I wrote a little bit about it in the book, but you can only touch on things about this deep in a book. So you sacrifice narrow depth for broad awareness. And so one of the things I've thought about a lot is we don't grasp everything that comes into our mind. The amount of, if you actually thought about it in kind of a quantum state, so how quantum works, a probability wave, and it could also be in two states at once, and a probability wave that it would be and is in the ideal state. Well, our brain, I think, actually potentially works similarly, in that out of all of our possible choices, we can only make one at a time. Like we're only looking at one thing at a time, and most of those things stay in a subconscious that doesn't actually register. It is, and that it doesn't hit our awareness at all. And that could be a dog barking right now while we're on this and I don't hear it because I'm talking to you and I'm thinking about this, or it could be a million of other things. We believe we don't do that. We believe we can focus on 2 or 3 things at the same time, but that's just a switching back and forth. It's how fast our brains switch. We can only focus on one thing at the same time. And so if you think about that quantum probability and that idea, and there's all of these things and choices in your brain that you actually don't know you're making those choices on. And it has to register. And if you look at brain scans, so it's called a P3 wave, as enough neurons start firing together, and a lot of times a P3 wave won't register across the whole brain and essentially come into your consciousness so you can make a decision. But you can still see, have you ever seen that basketball example where they're throwing around and count the white shirts and a gorilla comes in the middle of the
yeah fascinating.
And so it's actually a proof point of what I'm saying, right? So people would never see the gorilla because they're counting the white shirts, and on rewatching it they cannot believe they didn't see the gorilla. That's that kind of that P3 wave as it comes into as it goes over to your brain, brings it into your awareness. So what I think is happening in society in general, and individually, and then society and collectively, is if you looked at us or a bunch of people in Bitcoin, it's kind of that happening, and we're aware of it, and we became aware of it. And that path to understanding Bitcoin, a lot of times, the same thing. People don't understand it right away, and it takes them back and forth. But once they get it, they can't unsee it. And they see it and they see what we're talking about everywhere. But for people who haven't seen it, and if you imagine, their consciousness isn't picking it up at all. They're blind to it. So the system's thrashing back and forth, though. The one good thing about the systems thrashing back and forth is the existing system has to keep printing money, which has to bring has to bring more people into this awareness and ask these types of questions, which should hopefully bring a way wider adoption, as you essentially said, that global consciousness, now not individuals, but a global consciousness starts to understand what we're talking about.
Yeah, it's except it's not a gorilla; it's an elephant, and it's in every room at once. It's Schrodinger's elephant.
Exactly.
Yeah. So exactly right. I wouldn't call it the global consciousness. I would call it an intersubjective truth or something like that, maybe. But that's nitpicky. I agree with everything you said, Jeff. Yeah.
Yeah, and that ties pretty good. Before I forget that question from some of your followers, he says one of the questions is why by ISBN, why human beings evolved to have conscious states. Do you want to answer that, Jeff? I don't know.
I talked about that in Lex's show too. It's not out yet. So he asked, "Can you program consciousness?" And I believe yes. I believe eventually computers will have consciousness. And so what is consciousness? If what we just talked about. I know these are hard things to cope with.
In a holistic sense, do you mean with emotions and comprehension, emotions too?
So why not? So these states and if you kind of go back to I'm going down the rabbit hole here now, but if something Knut led me to. So some of these stories in our lives, told through folklore and everything else, but became the right things for us to survive as a species, right? The myths, legends, and everything else, before there was written word, before there was computer to error correct, these were stories passed down. Be good to your neighbor, right? Don't so there's a bias, and actually even one of the biggest stories around is something we're just the hero's journey, which we all drive towards, because a hero going up against a system not for their own benefit, but for a system to do the right thing no matter what, when most people won't. If the hero wins, loses, everything else, we want to celebrate that story, right? So, and we celebrate it through time. So if you think about a human evolution and our brain's ability to cope and everything else, all of these stories, ideas, everything else, essentially to point us to the right way about people who did it before us, became a foundational path actually to thrive as human beings. Because if you didn't, or if you didn't, you would be quickly killed or excommunicated from the group. Now you add in where technology is taking us, and computers and everything else. I say, if all of that came from our ability to tell these stories and ability to what's right, what's wrong, and error correct over this, the error correction came from a different form. Error correction came from these stories over and over and over again. And now that error correction is coming from computers.
Don't you think it might be the other way around, though? Like that the stories are the way they are. The fact that the hero's journey story seems to be so popular in all cultures might be because behaving in that way helps propel us forward, and hence the stories are constructed in that way. So it's not actually the story that makes us behave in a certain way, but us behaving in a evolutionary, like positive way, or evolutionary way that helps us forward, that makes us construct stories in that way.
Well, so I think, like, how does that start, that story? Because the person that's running this hero's journey is going up against a system, right? And then that story is so, we want to believe, hope, trust, we want to believe the good in people. And when that's up against a system that is unjust, and that hero wins, actually sometimes even if they lose, we celebrate them later on because of that. So I suspect, I'm not sure, but I suspect it's because we measure who we want to be and moving kind of society forward, that error correction, out of paths that people took that moved society forward. We celebrate our heroes.
Yeah, because the real life examples of this are good role models for us.
Totally.
So I believe that the stories come out of real life. It's not like it's a sort of a chicken and the egg thing going there, but they come from somewhere, and you can see similar behaviors in chimpanzees and baboons, by the way, like storytelling and like worshipping other chimpanzees and altars and stuff. They have a mind for telling stories as well, and they're getting there. And I believe it's strongly connected, as I've written in the books about Dunbar's number, and like we need a coherent story in order to form larger groups than Dunbar's number, where Dunbar's number is where you know everyone in the group personally, and in order to make a group larger than that, we need a narrative that everyone can believe in. So like an intersubjective value system. The idea of an omnipotent being is one such idea that can be used as a tool for our leaders in order to make people follow a certain leader in groups larger than a flock of baboons or a flock of chimpanzees. So I just need yeah.
And can I and Kevin, I spend a lot of time in podcasts and everything else, and I think we need to spend more as a Bitcoin community.
Any day, man.
In talking about the hope and the future of what it'll look like, rather than where we are now, because when people are scared, there's a whole bunch of scientific evidence on this. They don't think. They race back to safety. it's a response, and their ability to think goes down. They stand at a corner, car speeding down, and a car and it honks or screeches. What goes through your brain? Does it go to do you zoom out and see everything, or do you zoom in and think it's safety? So when people are scared, they zoom in and they get locked deeper. There's a lot of fear and anxiety in the world today, and that's going to accelerate. It has to accelerate, and it moves up the geopolitical ladder where we're talking about technology and where technology is going. It's so different from where we've been. The people don't want to face that. They don't want to face the truth. They want to go back to safety.
Yeah.
Now you add Bitcoin on top of that, and you add everything else and a system change on top of it. You can understand really well why people don't see it, because they're so scared to see it. They're so scared to examine whether it's in their consciousness or not, it's not, because they're so scared to be able to even examine it. It's easier to believe the narrative you've always believed.
Yeah, and Jeff, we're being systematically lied to, defrauded, and I can observe that around us in the very vicinity, whether it be friends, family, people are so scared of even facing their own fears. I mean, I don't want to go into psychedelic experiences. I think I'm a proponent of that because it helps you make peace with your own, let's just call them, really rooted fears, demons, and really, change the perspective. And I think this is what people need, but I don't know what's going to trigger that.
So here's how we can help. Here's how we can help. 1, 2, 3, and more. We can start talking way more about what the other side of the path looks like through hope. Is that your question? How do we get more people onto Bitcoin as fast as possible? And then what does that new system? What's it anchored by, and what does it look like? That provides a path of transition from a system that's failing and will look like this to a system of hope. And it's really important, because as you could, to that point, why religions or anything else, we need a story to believe in. And without that story, that story, we'll believe the story that's in front of us.
Yeah. So this is so fascinating, because I believe Bitcoin gives us the ability to believe in ourselves, the story of ourselves, and to realize our own dreams. And I think this fear that you're talking about, it's very tightly connected to why people virtue signal and why they're so untruthful, and like the image you signal to others becomes more important to you than what you actually think, because you're scared of consequences, and you're scared of telling the truth, and because telling the truth online and risking like saying something wrong, and like we're doing now, we're doing this live, and we just say whatever pops into our heads, and that can have dire consequences if something gets viral, and we can all have our reputations wrecked if we say something wrong. But it's so liberating to like let your guard down and just, this is me, this is how clever I am, I'm not this is the level I'm on, and I'm going to try my best with it. And Bitcoin has helped me a lot in like realizing my potential, I guess, and like, or that sounded a bit pompous, but like daring to expose myself like this. And I think more people should like be less scared, and I don't think they will be unless they dare to take a leap of faith, or a leap of a leap of something else. I wouldn't call it faith. I would call it a leap of trust in mathematics and praxeology.
So, if you guys have 10 more minutes, and we can wrap this up. Jeff, I really find this conversation highly fascinating. So can we go back to technology? Jeff, I want to ask you, because, again, you brought up some examples, in our interview and many other interviews, about how advanced, technology, that is already like 10 years old. And, as Eisenhower, warned us of the military-industrial complex, and, there's been just probably tens, maybe even more of trillions of dollars siphoned off into the military-industrial technological innovation complex, I would just call it. And I refuse to acknowledge that there hasn't been, some really fundamental advancements, innovation in whatever technological field, whether it be digital in the general sense or energy conversion.
The internet itself.
Internet itself, or energy conversion, transportation. I mean, I'm a total believer, and I'm convinced that once we reach that phase where we transition into technological advance, where we truly have a free market, we truly have entrepreneurs, genius minds, and innovators, and maybe even the patent system finally, gets opened up, for civilian use. What is your thoughts on that? I mean, can we usher into a new civilizational era with the known unknown or unknown unknown of technologies that we already have, but maybe hasn't been disclosed or not scaled up or not developed or whatever?
So from the existing system, the world will burn. And I'm so if this existing system, it looks like it, then you would have to trust a very small number of people. Probably first, what would happen, like if the world didn't burn, you would have something that looked, it might be USA and Europe against China and Russia or something, something like that, both with similar AI powers and everything else going to complete control of their citizens. And again, that system, no matter what it looked like before, is untenable, at least to me. Or you have something that looks like we're talking about on the kind of a Bitcoin standard, where you have empowerment of the individual and freedom. New story, new everything else, but because this is such a big deal, it's really hard to answer that in 2 minutes or 3 minutes and everything else. But I'll give an analog. It's a phase transition, and water looks the same until it's ice, and then it doesn't look the same anymore. The properties are completely different, and what we're dealing with in our society and everything connected to it is a phase transition. And that phase transition is underway as technology is supposed to be doing more of the work and getting it more and more efficient, and our time is supposed to be saved as a result. And it's not being saved as a result. We're on a mouse wheel going faster and faster and faster, trying to chase what should be there right in front of us all the time. It should be our productive capacity and our innovation is broadening our abundance, instead of concentrating wealth and power. But that we're going through that phase transition right now, and on top of that phase transition, assuming you move over to Bitcoin standard, it just keeps on accelerating. And what people can't see right now, because they're measuring all of the system from a system, and I get it, I really do get it, because the system's going to collapse. Winter is coming. The system is going to, or it's going to thrash back and forth, and a whole bunch of people are going to get hurt, and they can't see kind of how it would operate totally differently. So you add technology and the growth of technology, the rate of change onto the system we're talking about, is what it means. And it also means Bitcoin doesn't need to be $3 million, because that's a function of, or $20 million, that's a function of the fiat mindset. It could go down in price and up in purchasing power. And what all prices keep falling, and they keep falling, and they keep falling forever till zero. That's what that. But that phase transition, you can imagine I sound right now, not to you guys because you're deep into this, but when I wrote my book, I sound like it must. Who's this crazy person? But if you investigate how fast technology is moving, and it's just information, and more things are moving to information, and what's happening with energy, it's a fact. There's nothing going to stop it. It's information abundance. And one more thing, I wrote in the book about intelligence as error correction.
Yeah.
And that's a big thought, but that is what these stories did. That is what that's what printing press, and then being able to error correct. So every innovation and is actually speeding up the information, so that more information, and so on one side of it, and then technology is also coming in to error correct faster. So if you use a different proxy for this, the printing press, a whole bunch of people wrote books that were misinformation. And then over time, people corrected that misinformation, and the best information won. And today, in how we look at the world, we are biased. We have a recency bias. We think we're looking big picture. If you zoom out on what's really happening, we're all looking right now. If you and that recency bias creates, there's way too much information right now. We can't sort it all, and there's so much. What's the good, what's the bad? At the same time, artificial intelligence is error correcting a bunch of that for us, and the best ideas are percolating to the top. If you zoom out, and Bitcoin is one of those best ideas, right? If you zoom out to what's really happening, that's what's happening, and it's being error corrected all the time. So both technology enables that information to explode faster because it takes the cost down, and it creates more misinformation, which is error corrected with technology as well, or with faster as well.
Fascinating. Knut, let me know what you think. How does this, in your mind, in your vision, gonna play out?
Yeah, this ties into my the J curve rather than the S curve of the price adoption. All network technologies have an S-shaped adoption. I made a little video about this. You saw that, Kevin, I think. But so the number of users starts low and then increases exponentially until the entire world is on the same network. Like that happened for the TV and for the radio and for the internet and Google and Facebook and so on. But the price of Bitcoin, this thing that Jeff is talking about, that the error correction gets better and better over time, and at an exponential rate. That means that the purchasing power of Bitcoin will also follow an exponential curve, and it doesn't end with everyone in the world adopting Bitcoin, because there will still be more productivity and more money, more monetary energy in the network. When you have a global sound money free market, that exponentiality gets even better. Like the processes that makes the prices go down everywhere will accelerate. So you will see the price going up faster and faster. I don't see an end to this, an end point to. Of course, we have finite amount of resources on the planet, but then again, every good is a service. So we don't really need that many goods. We just need more services. And when we will have an abundance in services, so we will be able to be wherever we want, whenever we want, and do wherever we want, whenever we want. And that might be done by not real life experiences, but maybe virtual reality and augmented reality technology will become so good so that you'll prefer to take a vacation with a VR headset or something like that, a futuristic version of it. Anyway, my point is there's no end to Bitcoin and how great it can be.
Or we're living in the simulation. This isn't
yeah. Did you hear of Did you hear about the concept of a Boltzmann brain, by the way?
Yeah.
Predecessor to like the simulation theory.
Nick Strum, yeah, I have.
Yeah. Boltzmann was a fascinating guy. He has the best tombstone of any scientist. Did you see it? It's a big bust with a big beard like this.
Yeah.
Big thermodynamics guy. But let's not dive into that rabbit hole right now.
Oh, but there's a probability, and I think even Elon Musk said that there's the chance that we are living in a simulated reality is actually high. But anyway, let's not go there into a rabbit hole. My last question is, we all have children. I mean, my girlfriend and I have a 4-month baby girl. Everything changes. I mean, it's the most beautiful experience, to be honest with you. I've never, but your children, a little, essentially older. Do you think that we should be more cautious in how in general, how children are grown up? Would it be, the choice of homeschooling them or inspiring them with more creative thinking, imagination, exploration, questioning, the reality? Is that something that is more and more important in today's society, especially when we are somehow envisioning a society rooted in Bitcoin?
I think homeschooling is happening regardless if the parent wants it to happen or not, because the children are connected to the internet. And I'm just seeing my son, for instance, and how he learned to speak English. He learned to read English first from playing Hearthstone, the trading card game on the internet, and now he's playing Fortnite and he speaks fluent English. He's getting better than me in like months. He has months left, and then he's better than me. So, and that was all from the internet and not from the school. And the card game taught him to calculus as well, in a sense. So I think like the old schooling system is competing with something that is so much better at teaching at least curious kids, like kids with a curious mind. They adapt fast and they learn fast regardless of what school system they're in. So I just see it as like I'm forced to have the kids in school, and I guess as long as me and the wife has to work, it serves a function, and it serves a function of them like being in a group together with other people that was not of their own choosing, but like there's something there. But I think the system on a whole is very, very outdated, and that goes for from preschool to universities. There's so much better things, better ways of teaching people skills, like, because people need skills, and well, I have a lot to say about schools, but go ahead, Jeff.
So in this used to be a good way to learn, because information wasn't free. It was hard to access information. And so you created a structure to be able to teach a certain way on an old system. And primary of that structure was, so on the way through, was to get a high paying job, to feed back into the system, right? And that used to work fine before technology. Now information's free. You could find anything you want. You can error correct it yourself. You can find both sides of arguments. You could go down anything. I can get to any top researcher in the world in a matter of a nanosecond, and they'll take my call. So if you're curious and you have accountability, those two things matter a lot. Actually, I actually wonder if it's accountability first that drives curiosity. I think it is. And I want to learn more. I want to, okay, where was I wrong? Where did I make a mistake? And am I willing to face it's me, it's not everybody else. So if I blame everybody else, then I can't get better, because there's no reason for me to get better, because it's everybody else. If everything is responsible, if I'm accountable, responsible for everything that I control in my life, then it forces me to, even if it is somebody else, to drive what is the learning I can drive to this. And that, so accountability drives curiosity for in search of a better life. And that curiosity today, you can hack it for free. It's completely free. There is no cost. And you could get a way better job or create your own job by that same hack. So it's just where we put our time. Now add up the existing system, the 16 years or what, 15 years or 14 years, whatever you're going to do in the existing system versus the time you could place learning in this system. I'll tell you, I've hired thousands of people. I know who I would pick every time. I always pick the curious, accountable, curious person, because they never stop learning. They keep on learning. They're willing to change their view if information comes in that makes them realize I was wrong here. I had a different view, but it's okay. I'm going to change it because now I understand this, and it takes me further. I always hire that person versus the person that spent that many years in school because they think because of a diploma or a college education, they deserve it.
Yeah, and it's so important because these people are so precious, Jeff. I mean, I know it from my own experience because I went to, conventional, even Catholic, conservative school, and and then you go to university and then you study whatever law, medicine, whatever. But it's entrenched. This mindset is so entrenched. It's really hard. I can empathize with a lot of people that they can't get out of this box. As you called it in the beginning, Knut. So this is why I'm asking. What is it that we need to do to inspire our children? Give them like. I'm sometimes wondering what's life going to look like. How are they?
Let them
are
fail.
They still gonna, yeah.
Let them fail.
Yeah.
If you swoop in every time when we have an ability to give our kids anything. It's really hard not to give them things and make them and let them fail. It's really hard on us because you want to say, okay, we'll solve that for you. But if we solve for them, that accountability that I just talked about, that I got to find this answer, and it's not the world conspiring against me, it's me conspiring against the world. I have to find that. So it's actually, it's way more in parents than it is in kids to be able to put that. But because as kids, and if you think about you growing up, and some of the things your parents didn't even say about just who they were, you kind of fall into, okay, that's the way this works, right? And whatever that way that works, you fall into to that trap, even if they didn't necessarily say something. Or even worse, a traumatic event or something, you'll misinterpret what it means to you, or you'll not misinterpret. It means something to you that could mean something totally different to somebody else. This is your story, and you'll build a story around that story, and it'll be true for you forever. So these things in our own brain get encoded, and we don't know how they get encoded. They get encoded through emotion, or kind of positive, really high points and low points of emotion. They get encoded, and we forget to check, were they real? Were they true? Is it only our truth?
I think parents overestimate their impact on their kids, at least, upbringing wise. Of course, genetics play a huge role here, and some kids are fortunate to have good genetics. But then again, I think kids learn from their peers and from their friends and whoever they meet online and interact with. And therefore, I think one of the better things you can do as a parent is move to somewhere where the kid gets to meet people with a lot of different backgrounds. And there's some studies that say that bilingual kids have their brains wired slightly differently and stuff like that. So expose them to different types of experiences. That I think that is key. much more than telling them what to do and what not to do, and like nag at them all the time.
Yeah, and there's so many other factors like epigenetics, like environmental cues or learning processes, experiences. Yeah, that changes the DNA by itself, I think.
Yeah, I think that there's language plays a much bigger role than we think. There's an island nation somewhere in Micronesia that they always know the directions of east, north, and west and south, because they don't have left and right in their language. They only have north, south, east, and west, and they always they have like an inner compass, like a bird. So I think how our languages work, like for instance, in many Asian languages, there are no words for blaming other people. So if someone destroys a Ming vase in China, you don't really say, oh, this was destroyed by that person, but you said, oh, there was an accident, and there's no real way to blame a specific person on it. And I think that language plays a huge role in how we interact, like how our brains get wired over time when we're kids. And this is also an aspect of Bitcoin, because you can view money as a language and as a means of communication. And if the kids get to speak Bitcoin from an early age, so to speak, their minds will be wired in a different way. They will see the world in a different light than us fiat-minded boomers.
Yeah. And that's why I would also recommend, people or every kid at the appropriate age should read your books and many other, authors in this space. The Price of Tomorrow, Why Deflation is the Key to an Abundant Future by Jeff Booth, and Knut. I mean, you've written a couple of books, Bitcoin Sovereignty Through Mathematics and Bitcoin Independence Reimagined. So should be mandatory, I think. Mm-hmm. So. Thank you so much again for your time, and really it was a fascinating conversation. Any final thoughts or people, or anything important I think we left out to share with people, with our listeners?
We'll go down another rabbit hole if we do that, Kevin. I'm good, but thank you very much for having me on again.
Yeah, I think it's about time I go official with the fact that I'm going all in on Bitcoin and like I'm doing this full time. From now on, I quit my day job, so we'll see what happens with that. Do you have a job for me, Jeff?
Yeah, probably. Yeah,
I've employed like 450 people. You've employed thousands, but like I might come to you one day and knock on your door, or like your virtual door.
That sounds good. That sounds good. Yeah.
Perfect, complimentary.
Yeah.
Okay. Guys,
okay.
Thank you so much.
Love the conversation. Thank you so much,
Hope we can
Kevin.
do this again soon.
Yeah.
Near future.
Thanks, guys.